We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, coaches, parents, players, to this week's episode, the 80-20 Baseball Get-Together, our weekly episode coming out every Tuesday. In this week's episode, we are going to discuss habit number 3 of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Coaches series that we started a few weeks ago, and we're working our way through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Coaches. First, I want to start off by saying the 80-20 Baseball Podcast, the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. It's designed to be a weekly check-in, to calibrate, to dial in, and hone our coaching strategies, our coaching system. Now, some of you are just joining. I know the number has gone up quite a bit in just the last couple months alone. And for those of you that are joining us, I know you're binging. I get a lot of emails that coaches tell me they're going back and listening all the way from the beginning. So you're catching up. But for those of you that have been with the 80-20 Baseball Podcast, and I know there's quite a few of you have been with this, that have been with us 3 years now, you're coming in, you're dialing in, you're honing your coaching strategies, your coaching system. This is a weekly check-in. So it works both ways. You can binge, you can learn a ton, you can start from zero, or you can also take this as a weekly check-in to calibrate and hone our coaching strategies. It's always something that we're working on. I got an email from Coach Jay. Coach Jay, you know who you are, Coach. Thank you for that email. We discussed an outfield drill a few weeks back. Coach Jay went out and used the drill, and when he emailed me, he was fired up, had a lot of success implementing the drill. Now, implementing drills may not go perfect the first time. It sounds like for Coach Jay, it went amazing the first time. The feedback from the kids was great. Sounded like it operated really smoothly, and it was very effective. A lot of quality reps, high quantity of quality reps. That's not always going to be the case when you implement a drill. The key is to start, to put it in, to have the parameters in which you want to use, have a template, know what's important and what you want to get out of it, and then just start and put it in. And it should look better the next time, and it should look better the following time. I know some coaches and a lot of youth coaches won't coach for 10 years. Some of you might. Most of you will coach for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I know my old man coached for about 7, 8 years. He coached me in my youth days. So for you youth coaches that coach, say, 5 years, you should cringe a little bit if you look back 5 years from now at how you coached 5 years ago. You should cringe at some of those things, right? That means you're growing. That means you're improving a lot. And if you, and I know we do get some college coaches listening to this, high school coaches listening to this, if you've been coaching for 10 years, you should definitely be cringing at some of the things you were doing as a coach. And I'm not talking about like maltreatment of players, of course, but what I'm talking about is how you ran drills, your organization, your prioritizations. You should cringe a little. That means you've improved. That's a good thing. And I know I look back at my early days of coaching. In fact, if my players that I coached 15, 16, 17 years ago, or even 10 years ago, saw me coaching today, they would see a lot of similarities with how I treated players, with respect and my connection with players, but how I run the system, the drills, the detail, they would be quite surprised with the increase, I think much improved. So you could ask yourself that. If one of your old players came back and watched you coach 5 years later, or a player from 5 years ago was watching you coach today or this season, would it look better? Would it look improved? Would it look a little different or a lot different? It should. That doesn't mean we were failures at the beginning, but we're continuing to optimize and get better in all of our coaching areas. So with that said, Coach Jay, thanks for sharing your outfield drill experience. Sound like it went really good. That was a couple episodes, I want to say 4 episodes ago. I'll tell you, when I explain a drill on a podcast and I hear from coaches that they went out and put it into action, that they went out and used it effectively the first time, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. Now, before we dive into habit number 3, I want to share the coaching quote of the week. You don't demand respect, you earn it. You don't demand respect, you earn it. And I think of coaches that yell a lot. I was thinking the other day about this, and I think the majority of coaches that yell a lot, I think there's a couple things going on there that lead them to do that. And I'm definitely not a fan of yelling. And here's why. And here's 2 reasons why I think coaches go down the path of yelling. One, I think they're afraid of losing control of their team. They're a little scared that they might not have control of their team and their team might run amok and not listen to them. I've played for coaches like that I think are just yellers. They're trying to intimidate so they can make their players submissive and have the mindset of being submissive. And while we definitely want our players to know we're the leaders and we're the coaches and we're the adults. Definitely shouldn't be any mistaking that and that relationship and the difference there and the hierarchy in a way. And I say hierarchy, not that you're any better of a person than a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old, but older people have more wisdom. And if you build the trust with your players, they should trust you. And you're the leader. As adults, we need to lead kids. We can't have kids leading adults. Now, they can give us opinions. Absolutely. They can share suggestions, absolutely. They can give us feedback, absolutely. But they shouldn't be the ones steering the ship. That's what the adults are for. Definitely input, and they can help. And the more they help, that's awesome. Definitely want them to help out and give input and feedback, and we can learn from kids. But we don't want them steering the ship. Ultimately, we're the adults. We need to lead them. And I think coaches that yell, I think they're afraid of losing control, but also I think it's because they don't have the skills and the tactics and the tools to get respect and to get players to follow along, to buy in without the yelling. So they don't have the tools that a calm coach can use, like a Coach John Wooden is a perfect example of that. Coaches that are calm, that don't need to yell very much at all, if at all, those coaches have a full set of tools and approach that they can get buy-in and players to do what they ask and the respect without screaming and hollering. And the other reason I think that coaches yell a lot is because that's what they saw. That's how they were coached. Maybe that's how they were parented. That's what they know. They don't know that there's a better way. Now, can you get results by yelling? In the short term, yeah. But in the long term, not the results you want. Now, do you need to raise your voice from time to time? We've talked about that. Yeah, sometimes you do. Typically for safety concerns, immediate safety issues. I raise my voice when there's bullying, when there's a blatant bullying, a clear disrespect from one teammate to another. But the thing that's so nice about not yelling or raising your voice, I'm not saying being firm with your tone. Firm with your tone's different. But there's a nice thing about not raising your voice very often is when you do, you all know where I'm going with this. When you do, those kids perk up. They listen. They go, ooh, that's different. Uh-oh, what coach is saying right now has a lot of weight. So you don't dilute your message if you use it here and there. You sprinkle it and when you need it. I don't think you should have a quota of, I'm going to yell at my kids once a practice. I think you set the parameters, say, all right, it's like the RPO offense in football. You're not sure if you're going to run it, pass it, or whatnot, but you got options. And so when the play starts, you let the defense dictate where you go with it. And there's a huge advantage in all sports to have that option set by the offense. I don't want to get too far off into schematics here, but there is a huge advantage to not having a set call on offense, say basketball or football or whatnot, until the defense shows their hand, and then you can play off it. And the same is true as a coach. We want to have tools that we can go to and then let the players dictate sometimes. Now, we should be proactive, of course, with a lot of things, but things are going to come up. And if a kid is blatantly disrespectful to another kid, bullies them, that's when you raise your voice a little bit. You're really firm. You are quick and firm, and you send a message. This has worked so effectively for me over the years with so many kids. And I say so many kids, different teams, different classes I've worked with. And I'll tell you what, by not yelling a lot, when you need to raise your voice when somebody's bullying or not being cool with another kid, or it's a safety issue, wow. It's the complete opposite of the boy who cried wolf, the coach who cried wolf. You now are getting attention, full attention, immediate attention, and they're all in on whatever you're saying because they know you mean business, because that's out of the norm. So the quote is, you don't demand respect, you earn it. And this was by Steve Seidler. Hope I'm saying that, Coach Seidler. He coached as an assistant at Oregon State way back when. He coached in the 80s. And his quote was, you don't demand respect, you earn it. So I like to bring these coaching quotes and then we build off of them. The quote itself is really handy to have top of mind. It's easy to remember quotes versus chapters of a book, paragraphs, summaries, things like that. But I like to break this down so we really can see how it's important and how it can play out in different ways, definitely in youth baseball, youth sports. So you don't demand respect. You don't yell. You don't say, give me the respect because I'm the coach, because I said so. You earn it. And you earn it by making positive deposits. You earn it by laying clear expectations, transparency, full transparency, clear expectations, being a proactive coach, proactively praising, getting player buy-in, showing that you care about the player, the kid, show them that you care about them. A lot of coaches, they'll buy in to the fact that we need to get player buy-in and that we need to connect with players, and they'll stop at the first question. They'll ask them one question like, hey, how was your weekend? Or how did that jiu-jitsu tournament go for you this past weekend? Or if they're into something else, say they're into chess or something, how did that chess tournament, or how did that trip go for you? How did your family trip go? How did that trip to wherever go? And we stop there. and we don't ask a follow-up question, I have found that the buy-in and the respect that we're earning by asking one question about a player, that first question, that preliminary question, that initial question, is a tiny percentage uptick in perceived respect and their perception of how much you care about them as a person. You genuinely care about them as a person, not just a uniform number or a position. But I have found that it exponentially grows that perception of you caring, their perception, your player's perception of you caring as a coach. It grows exponentially with those quality follow-up questions. All of you, I'm sure, know exactly what I'm talking about. And this is not just true with players, but just in life. The follow-up questions really differentiate the, hey, I'm just throwing out a token question. The follow-up really shows that you're into it, that you care. So the quote was, you don't demand respect, you earn it. You want to get respect from your players, you get buy-in, you build rapport with them, you show them that you care. This doesn't have to take a long time. These are things you can do consistently, each practice, each training session, but it all adds up and it compounds over time. Consistency with this is key, right? As the player, you ask the question, say, hey, how was your trip? How was your camping trip with the family? And they say, oh, it was cool. We went to the lake. Oh, did you swim? Did you boat? Did you go wakeboarding? Did you go paddleboarding? And then they follow up and give you a little bit more, but pay attention to what they're hitting on. We all want to formulate a comeback and what we're thinking they're saying, but really listen to what they're saying and then try to tie into that with your follow-up questions. And that really increases the productivity and time. It's, first off, that's the way you really get to know them and you really can build that connection, and also shows them that you really care. So you don't demand respect, you earn it, I think, by proactively caring, praising, and also buy-in. I also think you earn respect by being consistent with your expectations and your rules. If you're not consistent, you're going to lose respect. They want a solid, consistent coach. Kids need consistency. They need coaches, they need parents, they need adults that are going to show up and show out in a similar fashion, practice in, practice out, day in, day out. Now, we're not all perfect, but we need to be consistent with these big needle movers, these most important, these key items. So you don't demand respect, you earn it. Steve Seidler, Coach Seidler, he was a basketball coach, college basketball coach. Oregon State, they had a lot of success, a lot of wisdom in that quote. So with that said, habit number 3 in our highly effective coaches series. Go back the last couple of weeks, listen to habit 1, habit 2. Last week was habit 2, begin with the end in mind. We also did the coaching tweets of the month. There were some good tweets of the month that I saw out there and I shared out last episode. Habit number 3, put first things first. So we're taking the 7 habits of highly effective people. We're taking the same habits, literally word for word, from the great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I got the book in my hand as we speak by Stephen Covey. It says on this cover, they've sold 30 million copies. 30 million copies. Wow, that's impressive. So I was rereading the book recently, and as I was reading it, it was very clear and hit me like a ton of bricks that these habits are exactly the habits we want to have to be effective coaches. So I thought, hey, what not a better time than as the season's kicking off and ramping up, about to start for some coaches and already started for some, to dive into these 7 habits of highly effective coaches. All right, habit 3 of highly effective coaches. Put first things first. By the way, this is literally the 80-20 principle. In fact, in the book, Stephen Covey refers to the 80-20 principle. So on page 164 of the book, about the 5th paragraph down, it's talking about time management, and I'm not going to get into the book. You can go read the book, but it talks about quadrants, time management quadrants, like managers style quadrant. And it says, quote, in time management jargon, this is called the Pareto principle. 80% of the results flow out of 20% of the activities. What really put me on to the 80-20 principle, the 80-20 rule, wasn't the book, the 80-20 principle by Richard Koch, which is a great book. He's got a series of books, Richard Koch, K-O-C-H. It wasn't that book. In fact, I probably heard or read about the 80-20 principle in half a dozen, or probably a dozen different podcasts, not just episodes, but different podcasts out there. And then also in books. I just kept reading it over in books. In fact, there was about 3 really well-known nonfiction books, self-help books in a row that I read that brought up the 80-20 principle, the 80-20 rule in the first chapter. 3 in a row. And that's when it hit me. I said, this is something. And I started looking at baseball and a youth baseball, we got to keep the first things first. If you're a college coach or a high school coach or a pro coach, that's a different world. You got lots of time. In pro ball, you got nothing but time. In college ball, you got more time. There are restrictions on college practice times and things like that, but it's still a lot more than youth. And high school, some high schools are year-round. Their practices can take 3.5, 4 hours. They shouldn't, but they do. They practice on Saturdays. They practice 6 days a week. They got a lot of time. I don't think that's healthy to over-practice by any means, but that's not the point of what we're talking about here. Youth baseball, you're lucky if you get 3 practices a week. And kids shouldn't be committed to the field all week long. They shouldn't. They need some breaks. They need balance. So we have to put first things first. Habit number 3, put first things first. This takes habit 2, begin with the end in mind, and it builds off of it. So it takes habit 2 and it builds off of it. Habit 2 reminds us to look at the result, the goal we want to achieve, and then build a plan that will lead us to achieving that end result. Then habit number 3, put first things first, reminds us to take care of the big needle movers first, the most impactful things first, or at least allocate more time to those things. So habit 2 reminds us to look at the result, the goal we want to achieve. We talked about that last week, the 3 main goals that we want to achieve as coaches, and then build a plan that's going to get us there. But to build that plan, we need to utilize habit 3, put first things first. Here's a quote from the book, "Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least." Again, it doesn't say on this quote, it doesn't say things that matter should never be at the mercy of things that don't matter. It's not black and white. It's a spectrum. Most things are all on a spectrum, most of them. There's some things as coaches we should not do at all, but it's typically on a spectrum. And this quote, I think, encapsulates that paradigm really well. Things which matter most should never be at the mercy of things which matter least. That's the 80-20 principle, and this is a huge competitive advantage and also just the way to live life. It's the right way to live life. Prioritize. Put first things first. Now, here's one thing that the book does discuss. It's called stewardship delegation, and how this ties into putting first things first. It's an example of in life putting first things first. So we want, for example, kids to become autonomous. We want kids to become self-sustained and self-sufficient adults, healthy, prepared adults, to add, to contribute, to lift up the community and society, not tear it down, not bring it down, not cause problems. We want genuinely good adults to come from these kids that we're working with, these players that we're working with. And there's one interesting story in this book, and it is in this chapter in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And it's a really good example of something that we talk about a lot in the 80-20 baseball community and on the podcast. And there's a story in here when Stephen Covey was talking about his son. He said, when his son was old enough to start mowing the lawn, he didn't tell his son how to mow the lawn. He showed him one of his neighbor's yards that had beautiful grass, that had a beautiful lawn, and said, we need it to look like that, or that's the goal. That's the end in mind, right? That's where we want to be. And from what I gathered, he didn't even sit there and watch it. And I think there's a caveat to this, that you should definitely say, hey, that's the goal we want. Show them what you want. Tell them what you want. Be very clear. This is where we're trying to get. This is why it's important. There's 3 parts to it, I think, is you show them like, hey, that's the grass we want. This is why it's important, or this is why it's great. You take care of the yard, we can use it more. We can play in it more. We're not stepping and tripping on things and causing injuries. Or kind of second caveat to that would be pointing out things that could cause injury, things that might go wrong, like hazards or problems, like frequently asked questions, but frequently serious issues or what have you. I would be clear about that. So you say, hey, look at Mr. Jones's yard, look at that lawn. That's how we want our lawn to look. This is why. This is why I'm having you do it. We're a family. We work together. If we all pitch in, and then you say, hey, make sure your foot isn't near the edge of that lawnmower. Make sure you wear safety glasses. Make sure you don't run over the hose or something that might be buried in the grass that might shoot out. You can cover a couple of the main issues. I wouldn't get into a list of 10 things, but say those 3 things. And he tells his son to go out and get his grass to look like the Joneses across the street, beautiful. And then he lets him do it. And I think this is really great parenting and coaching. This is what we want. And then don't micromanage. Don't helicopter parent. Don't helicopter coach. This is what we want. This is where we're trying to get to. And then delegate. Focus on the results instead of the methods. Focus on the results instead of the methods. It gives the players, makes them responsible for the results. That's why I like the 80-20 hitting approach so much. You don't go through a checklist of 7 things they're doing. You're like, hey, this is the goal, and let's get you a lot of quality reps to see how you can find a way to get there. Doesn't mean we can't throw in a tip here and there or a little adjustment. Of course we can. So keep that in mind. Begin with the end in mind was last week, and we're building off that with habit 3. Put first things first. The big needle movers first. With youth baseball, youth sports, there's a minimal amount of time in comparison to pro and college and high school. And that's why I was looking at it and going, wow, all this advice that's out there. It's high school coaches, college coaches, pro coaches, talking to that same community. And I'm out there in the youth baseball fields coaching a lot of different teams. And it was like, we don't have time for, I had a parent come up and he said to me, hey, when are you going to cover X, Y, and Z? I said, we don't have time. He said, we got to cover it. I said, at the trade-off of what? At the trade-off of what? Things that matter least should never be put before the things that matter most. I said, we need to get better at hitting. We need to get better at pitching. We need our catching to step up. We need our defense. We need to field these routine ground. We need to make these plays on defense. We need to be able to field ground balls consistently, catch fly balls. And so there was like, hey, we got to go over all these bunt defenses and all these first and third offenses. And I said, no, we got to cover the main needle movers. I said, you know what? What's going to cost us a lot more games, might cost you every game, is a team that can't hit and can't pitch and can't play defense. You could be the best first and third defense in America, or you could have the best bunt defense. You could have the best trick plays. If you can't hit or pitch or play defense consistently and run the bases, you're not going to win a lot of games. So it was a little hard. This was a dad who wasn't a baseball coach. He was really successful in another business. And we all have our areas of expertise. That's why I love getting emails from coaches, from parents and dads, moms. It's like, I can tell we're talking high intellect, but you're coming here because you want to expedite your baseball expertise. And that's why you're here. Just like many of you would be the experts I would be going to see if I need help in the areas that you're experts in with your day jobs. So that's how the world works. So that's what's awesome. So the 80-20 principle, begin with the end in mind, was last week. We build off that with habit 3, put first things first. So what's the goal? Okay, what are the things we need to do to get there? And now, first things first, the big needle movers. And in baseball, you could talk about fundamentals and team play, winning games with the skill set, the skills we need. Hitters, you got to hit. Hitting happens and pitching happens. Those two things happen more than everything else. Of course, pitching and hitting. You could throw catching in there. Look at all the great teams at any level. They always have solid catchers. They always have great catchers. That was one strong commonality I've seen over the years, especially at the youth level when the pitching isn't dialed in as much. But pitching, hitting, quality catching, and then fielding ground balls, catching fly balls, and then you base running. The reason I put base running after is I think kids can figure out running bases. I know it's not like just running out of recess, but they've been running since they were little. They're running at recess, they're running at PE, they're running at school, they're running all the time. They're running in the neighborhood, but they're not always fielding ground balls and catching fly balls. That's not something kids just go out and just start hitting good fly balls and good quality ground balls to each other all the time. They're running a lot more than they're doing those two things. Keep the first things first when it comes to building rapport. Be upfront with your expectations, your rules. Don't have a lot of rules, but be upfront with them and be consistent with your enforcement of the consequences. Be consistent. Have very few rules, only the rules you need, and then enforce them consistently. Show that you care about the players as people. Show that you care about them. Praise before you want to critique everything. Look to praise. Look for the good. Look for the good before you look for the incorrect skill or the incorrect technique. I'm not saying you shouldn't look at the incorrect technique, but look at the good. Look for the good. Build connection. Instead of asking the kid or talking to him about his swing, I'm not saying you can't start by talking about the swing, but get in the habit of asking and talking about or talking to the players about them. Definitely early on at the beginning of practice, before practice starts, early on at the beginning of the season. You got to get them to know you care, and we should. And then you can mold them. You can get them to where you need. Goes back to the quote, you don't demand respect, you earn it. You don't demand kids do what you want. You earn that, and you get them to do what you want and get them to do what you need to be a healthy, cohesive team, have a fun team culture, win more games, and become great adults by getting that buy-in, by putting the first things first. So you have your skills that you want to work on, baseball skills, pitching, hitting. You could throw in catching there too. The thing about catching is it's not a team-wide skill set. It's typically not a team-wide item or thing to cover. So if you're creative with that, you can have the catchers doing a lot of work on the side and be creative with your catching group to get them a lot of good quality defensive reps while other players might be hitting. And then defense, ground balls, fly balls. Get a lot of reps so those kids they get used to bounces. They get used to speed of balls. They get used to different spins. They get automatic with their footwork. They see a lot of different variations. Same with fly balls. They see spin, they see slice, they see hook, they see tail, they see knuckle, they see backspin. They play the different wind. They get used to the sun. That's why you got to get a lot of quality reps in so they can get used to that. You can't talk to them about that stuff. They just got to see it. They got to do it. So those are the 4 big things. You have base running in there. Base running to me is more just a mindset, if anything. I think it's just your players should be aggressive but not reckless. You want them to be as aggressive as they can, border right up to the point of reckless, and you back them off. All right. You want to go to that line in the sand of just super aggressive and then right up to the part where, all right, now that's too reckless. You're not thinking that through. So it's somewhat aggressive with some calculation. All right. To wrap it up there, habit 3, first things first, build rapport, be proactive with your expectations, be very transparent, give a lot of praise, run a fast-paced practice. Everything else will start taking care of itself. Put first things first and everything else will take care of itself. And if you're not perfect on those small little needle movers, those things that aren't going to affect too much, that's fine. It's not about being perfect and having everything covered. Professionals don't even have enough time to get perfect at everything. And they have 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and they still don't get perfect at everything. So youth baseball's a long ways from that in terms of how much time you're going to have to train. So first things first, it's the 80-20 principle in different wording. There you go. I love being here with all of you, and just the feedback and seeing the numbers jump up. It just pumps me up. So send me over your emails, your successes. I want to be there on your coaching journey. I'm getting a lot of emails, so I try my best to give quality responses, but even if you just send me something, we can have a kind of a quick back and forth. It's better than nothing. I try my best to give a nice, thorough response, but I'm getting a lot of positive emails telling me they're really liking the podcast. They're telling me about these results they're getting, all the success they're having. Fires me up. Next week, habit 4, think win-win. And be sure to be here because we're going to discuss something. There's something very interesting about the win-win rule. Habit number 4 in our 7 Habits of Highly Effective Coaches series, win-win. Think win-win. I'll tell you, there's something interesting about this because over the years, as I've seen this play out, not just in coaching, but in life, I feel like it's always 1 win short of the optimal result and sometimes 2 wins short of the optimal result. And we'll get into that. So just to give you a different look at it, we're actually going to take habit 4 and I think improve upon what the book has as we put it into the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Coaches series. Head over and get the drill design guide, 80-20 baseball drill design guide. It's a 21-page PDF. Gets that paradigm going on how to build a drill, what's important, what's not. Follow on Twitter, 8020_baseball, 8020_baseball. You can support the podcast, leave a review. At a minimum, a review. Had some great reviews left. That's awesome. Thank you. A quick rating, that supports the show, and it only takes a minute. Email me your success stories. Then take care of yourself, take care of your families, your close friends, take care of your families, your close friends, take care of your health. Like I said last week, I think all the great coaches, one thing they have in common is they take care of themselves. They're not perfect with their health, but they take good care of themselves so they can be good coaches and have that energy and that positive vibe when they get out there to the field. Take care of your families, your close friends, and take this information out to the baseball field. Take it out to the field. You hear it at the end of the podcast. Take it out, put it into play. Don't just turn off this podcast, switch to whatever, hit end, take this and go use it. Write down how you can plan out and take this out there, or just go take it out and start plugging it in. Start plugging it in and you will get better. You will have more success as a coach. I promise you that. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.